What if the oldest Christian church on earth is still alive today? Not behind glass in a museum, not trapped in the pages of a textbook, but active. It is a faith that prays in a language which predates Arabic, Latin, and even Greek. Most of the Western world looks toward Rome or the Vatican when they trace the roots of Christianity. Yet this church was founded in 42 AD, while the disciples of Jesus were still walking the earth. It is a living anachronism. While empires rose and fell, and while the maps of the world were redrawn time and again, this community remained. They carry a history that is older than the Pope, older than the Bible most people read, and far older than the institutions that claim to define the faith. They are not a relic of the past. They are a continuous, unbroken chain stretching back to the very first century. Yet, their existence is a silence in our history books. Why is a church that predates the Council of Nicaea by 300 years absent from our classrooms? The mystery begins in the sand. In 42 AD, a man named Mark stepped onto the docks of Alexandria. He was one of the 12, a witness to the life of Jesus, yet he did not arrive to plant a new religion in a vacuum. He came to a land that had already been the stage for the most pivotal moments in spiritual history. This was the earth where Moses was born, where Joseph was sold into slavery, and where the Holy Family sought refuge. Egypt was already sacred ground, etched with the memory of prophets and kings. Mark did not come to discard this past. He came to fulfill it. He walked into the heart of the Mediterranean's greatest intellectual hub and founded the Church of Alexandria. He brought a message that resonated with the ancient dust of the Nile. By establishing this community, he anchored the faith. He was not building on empty space. He was building on the foundation of the pharaohs, creating a continuity that would defy the centuries. The Roman Catholic Church, which dominates the Western understanding of Christian origins, was not formally structured until the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. Yet, the Coptic Church predates that council by nearly 3 centuries. While the world looks to the later councils for the birth of institutional Christianity, the Copts were already holding the keys to their own tradition. Their first pope, a direct successor to Saint Mark, was appointed in 68 AD. Think of the scale of that timeline. 118 popes have sat in the chair of Saint Mark, maintaining a line of succession that has never been broken. This is not a fragmented history or a reconstructed narrative. It is a continuous, living record. While seminaries across Europe and America focus their attention on the developments of the medieval era, this ancient institution has preserved its own authority in the shadows of the Nile. They did not wait for the approval of councils or the shifting politics of empires to define their existence. They simply continued. Every name in that long list of 118 leaders represents a bridge across time, connecting the modern world directly back to the first century. Beyond the history of its leaders, there is a mystery held in the very air of the Coptic liturgy. The language spoken in their churches is not a liturgical construct. It is the final, surviving form of ancient Egyptian. It is the tongue of the pharaohs, the dialect that echoed against the limestone walls of temples built before the time of Abraham. While the rest of the world classifies this language as dead, it remains alive in the mouths of Coptic priests. Every Sunday, from the cathedrals of Cairo to the diaspora congregations in London, Sydney, and New York, the ancient phonetics rise again. When a priest chants the liturgy, he is not merely reciting scripture, he is breathing life into a linguistic ghost. The sounds that once carved the history of a civilization into granite are now used to articulate the prayers of the present. This is not a dead language kept on life support. It is a functional, vibrant medium of faith that has refused to vanish. The language of the pharaohs was not the only thing preserved in the Egyptian landscape. Deep in the arid silence of the eastern and western deserts, the Coptic Church maintains monasteries established in the 3rd and 4th centuries. These are not merely historical sites. They are the original crucibles of Christian monasticism. Long before the rise of Benedict or Francis in the West, these desert fathers were forging a life of radical solitude. They retreated into the heat and the dust, seeking a discipline that stripped away the distractions of the world. Their daily rhythm remains largely unchanged from those early centuries. The monks live in stone cells that have seen 1,400 years of continuous prayer. They follow a cycle of fasting and labor that predates the formal structures of European monastic orders. This is the raw, ascetic origin of the faith, preserved in the very places where it first took root. There is no comfort here, only the stark reality of the desert and the weight of an unbroken tradition. When a monk walks the perimeter of these ancient walls, He is moving through the same space and performing the same duties as the hermits who fled the cities in the dawn of the church. The desert held more than just the memory of monks. It held secrets buried in the earth. In 1945, near the limestone cliffs of Nag Hammadi, a farmer struck something hard while digging in the soil. He cleared away the sand and pulled out a large, sealed clay jar. The seal was intact, untouched by the centuries. He broke the clay and reached inside. He did not find gold or coins. He pulled out 13 leather-bound codices, their pages made of papyrus, preserved by the dry, airless environment. These were not the standard texts known to the modern world. They were manuscripts dating to the 4th century, written in Coptic. As the pages were unrolled, the contents revealed a startling reality, a collection of gospels that had been circulating in the early Christian community. The jar had been buried to protect these words, and in 1945, the earth finally gave them back. The ink on these papyrus pages was still legible after 16 centuries of darkness. Scholars began to translate the Coptic, and the words they found were unlike anything in the standard New Testament. The Gospel of Thomas stood out, containing 114 sayings attributed directly to Jesus. These were not parables of judgment or institutional law. They were direct, visceral instructions on presence. Saying 77 is the most striking. It reads, "I am the light that is over all things. I am all. From me all came forth, and to me all attained. Split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there." The text suggests a divinity embedded in the physical world, accessible through the simplest of human actions. For 1600 years, these words were locked away, absent from the canon that shaped Western belief. Beyond the ancient texts, the Coptic Church enforces a discipline that has remained unchanged for 2 millennia. Every year, the faithful observe a fast lasting 55 consecutive days. During this time, meat, dairy, and all animal products are strictly forbidden. It is a grueling, physical commitment that strips away the comforts of the modern diet, forcing a daily, conscious choice to abstain. This is not a symbolic gesture. It is a rigorous, bodily test of endurance. Yet, the most striking departure from Western institutional norms occurs during the selection of their pope. There are no campaigns, no debates, and no College of Cardinals maneuvering for influence. Instead, the names of candidates are placed in a bowl. A young child, eyes covered by a thick cloth, reaches into the vessel. The silence in the cathedral is absolute as the child pulls a single slip of paper from the pile. The congregation believes the Holy Spirit guides the hand of the child, bypassing human ambition entirely. This ritual has been the standard for centuries, a stark rejection of the political machinery that defines leadership elsewhere. While the rest of the world relies on polling, power, and strategy, the Coptic Church places the future of its leadership in the hands of a child, trusting in a process that defies modern logic. In the year 640 AD, the landscape of Egypt shifted violently. The Arab conquest swept across the nation, dismantling existing power structures and fundamentally altering the governance of the land. For the Coptic Christians, this was not merely a change in administration, it was an existential crisis. The new order brought with it heavy taxes, legal restrictions, and the constant crushing pressure to convert to the new faith. Many populations in the region folded under this weight, abandoning their ancestral beliefs to survive. But the Copts did not flee. They did not disappear into the desert, nor did they assimilate to escape the burden of their status. They stayed. For 14 centuries, they lived as a minority in their own home, enduring periodic persecution and the slow erosion of their social standing. They remained in the same villages, kept the same liturgy, and held to the same ancient language that predated the conquest by centuries. This was not a passive survival. It was a deliberate, generational refusal to be erased. By choosing to stay, they preserved a direct link to the ancient world. The resilience that defined the Copts for 14 centuries faced its most brutal test in the modern era. In 2011 and 2017, the threat shifted from systemic pressure to direct, lethal violence. Churches were targeted by suicide bombers during peak services. The explosions shattered stained glass, collapsed stone walls, and left the floors covered in debris. These were not random acts. They were calculated attempts to break the community through terror. Yet, the response was not flight. In the days following the attacks, the survivors returned to the blackened ruins. They cleared the rubble, they swept the dust from the altars. They stood in the very spaces where the violence occurred and continued their prayers. This was a physical rejection of the terror intended to drive them out. They did not retreat to safer borders or abandon their ancestral sites. Instead, they reinforced their presence, rebuilding the damaged structures. They remain in the land of their ancestors because their identity is rooted in a connection to the earth that no amount of fire can burn away. The endurance of the Coptic people is not merely a matter of faith, it is written into their blood. Modern science has stripped away the layers of historical debate to reveal a singular, physical truth. DNA studies conducted on the contemporary Coptic population show a genetic profile that remains distinct from the surrounding Arab populations. When researchers compare their genetic markers to the remains of ancient Egyptians found in tombs and burial sites, the results align with startling precision. They are not converts who adopted a foreign religion. They are the direct biological descendants of the people who built the pyramids. They are the people of the Bible, still walking the same soil where Moses was born and where the Holy Family sought refuge. This genetic continuity explains their stubborn refusal to leave the land. Their connection to Egypt is not a choice, it is a biological inheritance. They are the living remnants of the Pharaonic era, the only group that has maintained an unbroken physical link to the ancient world. They have never left home. Today, 20 million people carry this history forward. From the crowded streets of Cairo to the quiet outskirts of London, Sydney, and New York, the rhythm remains identical. They gather in spaces that mirror the architecture of the early centuries, standing before altars that have seen no reform for 2,000 years. The liturgy is a fixed point in a spinning world. While empires collapsed, borders shifted, and the global language of commerce evolved into something unrecognizable, the Coptic prayer remained locked in its original form. A priest stands before the congregation, reciting the same words that were spoken in the shadow of the Roman Empire. There is no attempt to modernize the cadence or simplify the ancient phrasing. It is a deliberate, stubborn stillness. To witness it is to step outside the current timeline. The air in these churches carries the weight of centuries, thick with the scent of incense, and the sound of a language that predates the modern world. It is a paradox of endurance. 20 million people living in the present. Consider the facts. The oldest church is not a relic. It is a living, breathing entity. It predates the councils, the creeds, and the institutional structures that define Western Christianity. Yet, it remains a ghost in our history books. Why is the narrative of the origins of the faith so carefully curated to exclude the very people who held the keys from the beginning? If the Coptic Church is the original witness, then the version of history taught in our seminaries and schools is incomplete by design. Something was left out. Something was silenced. Who decided that the oldest voice should be the one we never hear? What was removed from the story? And why does the world continue to look away?